Sarah woke up that Sunday in March with soft moans, her small hand pressed against her stomach, as if trying to hold something that was escaping from inside. Diane was in the kitchen preparing coffee when she heard the different cry coming from the bedroom. It wasn't a tantrum, it wasn't whining, it was real pain. The kind of cry every mother recognizes deep in her chest, making her heart race before her mind even processes what's happening. "Mom, it hurts so much," he whispered when she reached the bedroom, his little face flushed with fever, his eyes glazed in a way Sarah had never seen before. Ethan was a clever boy, the kind who invents excuses not to go to school, who dramatizes a scratch on his knee, but there, curled up in bed, he seemed so small, so fragile, that Sarah felt a chill down her spine. "Before I continue, tell me in the comments which city you're hearing this story from, and take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel, because here every day there's a new drama, a new conflict, a new story that seems like a lie, but it isn't." His temperature was high, very high. The thermometer read 103.6 degrees, and Ethan kept moaning, saying his stomach was burning inside. Sarah tried giving him a lukewarm bath, offered water, did all those things that mothers do when their child is sick, but nothing worked. On the contrary, Ethan only got worse. Within an hour he was vomiting, pale as paper, and the pain in his stomach had become unbearable. It was when Sarah grabbed the car keys with trembling hands that reality hit. She was alone. Ethan's father had vanished 2 years ago, and family. Well, Sarah's family always had its peculiarities. Even so, in that moment of desperation, she picked up her phone and called her mother. Barbara answered on the 3rd ring, with that gentle voice she used when she was busy with something more important. "Hello, Sarah. What is it now?" "Mum, Ethan is really sick. High fever, vomiting, with terrible stomach pain. I'm taking him to the hospital now. Can you—" "Oh, Sarah, you're so dramatic. Children always get sick. Give him some Tylenol and that's it." Sarah felt her stomach turn. It wasn't the first time Barbara had minimized her problems, but at that moment, with Ethan crying in the back seat of the car, her mother's indifference hurt in a different way. "Mom, it's not drama. He's really very sick. I've never seen him like this. Look, honey, today is Sunday, and you know it's Tyler's birthday. Jessica has been here since early morning organising everything. The themed cake is arriving at 3, and I need to be here to make sure everything is perfect. 7-year-old children don't die from stomachaches, Sarah. You've always been exaggerating." The line went silent for a few seconds. Sarah was driving toward the hospital, Ethan moaning in the back seat, and on the other end of the line, her mother was talking about her cousin's birthday as if it were a matter of life and death, as if Ethan didn't exist, as if her grandson's pain wasn't even worth a visit to the hospital. "Mum, I just wanted someone from the family to be with me right now." "Sarah, stop being dramatic. Call later and tell me how it went. Bye." And she hung up. Sarah drove the rest of the way in silence, swallowing her tears, trying to process what had just happened. Ethan continued moaning in the back seat, and she felt completely abandoned. It was no surprise that Barbara preferred Jessica's children. Tyler, 8, and Emma, 5, were the golden grandchildren, the ones who appeared in all of her Facebook photos, the ones who got the most expensive presents at Christmas. But at that moment, her mother's coldness had crossed all boundaries. St. Luke's Hospital was crowded, as always on Sundays. Sarah carried Ethan in her arms. He was heavy, too heavy for a child who could barely stand, and went straight to reception. The nurse looked at them and immediately called a doctor. Abnormal vital signs, high temperature, intense abdominal. Pain. Ethan went straight to the emergency room. 2 hours later, the doctor came out with an expression Sarah would never forget. Dr. Richard was a tall man, about 50, with that serious manner doctors have when the news isn't good. "Mrs. Sarah, I need to talk to you." Her heart raced. "Ethan has acute appendicitis. It has likely progressed to a more serious complication, sepsis. We need to operate now, but... He paused for what seemed like an eternity. The situation is delicate. We'll do everything. We can, but I need you to know that the next 24 hours will be crucial. The words echoed in Sarah's head as if she were underwater. Sepsis, crucial, surgery. Ethan could die. Her 7-year-old son could die, and she was alone in that hospital. She signed all the papers with a trembling hand, authorized the surgery, and sat there in that plastic chair in the waiting room, looking at the wall and trying to understand how Sunday had turned into this nightmare. Ethan entered the operating room at 3 p.m, exactly the time Tyler's cake was arriving at his grandmother's house. The surgery lasted 4 hours. 4 hours that seemed like 4 years. Sarah called. Jessica tried to explain the situation, but her sister was in the middle of the party and could barely hear properly. Sarah, that's too bad, really. But look, I can't talk right now, it's full of kids here. Mum is taking pictures for Tyler's album. Call later, okay? Love you. And she hung up too. At 7 p.m, Dr. Richard appeared again, this time with an even more serious expression. The eye. Surgery went well, but the condition is serious. The infection has spread more than we anticipated. Ethan is in the ICU sedated and will need to stay hospitalized for a while. I can't guarantee anything yet, but he's strong. Let's hope for the best. ICU. The word sounded like a sentence. Sarah was allowed to see her son for a few minutes. When she entered that room full of machines, beeping monitors, Ethan connected to a bunch of tubes, she collapsed. She sat in the chair next to the bed and cried like she hadn't in years. It was almost midnight when she managed to compose herself enough to pick up her phone. The family WhatsApp group was full of photos from the party. Tyler smiling next to the 3-tier superhero-themed cake, Barbara arranging the treats, Jessica posing for a photo with her children running, playing, laughing. It was as if nothing had happened, as if Ethan didn't exist. Sarah typed a message to the group. Ethan had emergency surgery today. He's in the ICU with sepsis. The next few hours are critical. She sent it and waited. A response, a word of support, a how can I help? But what came was silence. Complete silence. The group that had been buzzing with messages about the party suddenly went quiet. Until half an hour later, Jessica responded, "Oh, Sarah, that's really too bad. But you're exaggerating again, aren't you? Children are resilient. Soon he'll be playing again. We're very sorry, but we can't stop life because of this. And look, avoid this drama in the group, okay? There are children here who might get scared." Sarah read the message 3 times before she could process it. Her sister, who had 2 children, was asking her not to make drama about her own son being between life and death. She was concerned about the family's children getting scared by the news that their cousin was in the ICU. Barbara's response came soon after. "Sarah, I've already told you not to be dramatic. Ethan will be fine. You didn't need to make this scene in the group. Delete that message." Sarah felt something breaking inside her chest. It wasn't just disappointment or hurt, it was anger. A quiet, accumulated anger that she had swept under the rug for years. There, in that ICU, seeing her son fighting for his life while the family worried about preserving the harmony of the WhatsApp group, something changed. She deleted the message, as Barbara had asked, but she didn't delete the wound. She didn't delete the outrage. And most importantly, she didn't delete the certainty that for the first time in her life, she was seeing her family for what it really was. In the early morning, Ethan had a cardiac arrest. The alarms went off. The medical team rushed to the room. Sarah was pushed outside while they performed resuscitation procedures. 5 minutes. 5 minutes that seemed like 5 hours. When Dr. Richard came out and said Ethan had been successfully resuscitated, Sarah collapsed on the hallway floor. It was in this moment of total despair that she called her mother again. 3 a.m, not caring if Barbara was sleeping, if she would wake the whole house, if she would cause any inconvenience. Her son had almost died, and she needed her mother. Barbara answered irritably. Sarah, it's absurd to call at this hour. You have no consideration for anyone. Mum, Ethan had a cardiac arrest. He almost died. I'm here alone. I need... Sarah, stop this. You're losing your mind. I can't believe you woke me up to make up stories. Making up? Mum, for God's sake, my son almost died. If he almost died, then he didn't die. Stop the drama and let me sleep. Tomorrow I have to take Tyler to swimming lessons. And she hung up on her. Sarah stood there in the ICU hallway at 3 a.m, holding her phone and trying to understand what had just happened. Her mother had hung up on her. In the most desperate moment of her life, Barbara had chosen to hang up the phone and go to sleep because the next day she had to take her favourite grandson to swimming lessons. It was at that moment that Sarah understood something. She had no family. She had people who shared the same blood, who appeared in Christmas photos, who called themselves mother, sister, grandmother. But real family, the kind that supports you in times of pain, that drops everything to help you when you need it most, that she didn't have. Ethan spent the rest of the night stable, but still critical. Sarah didn't leave the hospital. She slept in the uncomfortable chair next to the ICU, ate an old sandwich from the vending machine, drank bad coffee from the hallway, and stayed there alone, praying to every saint she knew. The next morning, the family group started buzzing again. But not with news about Ethan, with photos of leftover treats from the party, with videos of Tyler playing with his new presents, with comments about how the party had been a success, as if nothing had happened, as if Ethan didn't exist. Sarah didn't send any more messages to the group. She didn't call anyone. She didn't ask for help. At that moment, she understood that she was completely alone, and that perhaps she always had been. The difference was that now she knew it. And knowing changed everything. Because when you discover you're alone, you stop expecting rescue from others. You stop counting on support that will never come. And you start finding a strength you didn't even know you had. There, in bed 32 of the paediatric ICU at St. Luke's Hospital, Sarah began to discover who she really was. And most importantly, she began to understand who her family really was. The day was just beginning, and Sarah already knew that nothing would be the same. Ethan was fighting for his life, and she was fighting to understand how she had reached that point, how she had accepted for so many years being treated as a secondary character in her own family. How she had allowed her son to be invisible to his own relatives. But one thing had changed since the night before. Sarah was no longer asking to be seen, to be loved, to be considered. Now she was beginning to see, with painful clarity, exactly who the people around her were. And this vision, as painful as it was the first step toward a freedom she didn't even imagine existed. Tuesday arrived with a different light coming through the ICU window. Ethan had spent Monday night stable, and Dr. Richard appeared with a shy smile on his face, the first good news in 3 days. Mrs. Sarah. Ethan responded well to treatment during the night. The fever dropped significantly, and the tests show that the infection is regressing. We'll still keep him in the ICU for a few more days, but the worst is over. Sarah broke down in tears right there in front of the doctor, not caring about anything else. Her boy was going to be okay. He would come home, would run around the house again, would give goodnight kisses again. For a moment, all the pain, all the loneliness, all the abandonment by the family seemed like details compared to that news. "Can I talk to him?" she asked, wiping away her tears. "Yes, you can. He's awake, still a bit drowsy because of the medication, but lucid." When Sarah entered the room and saw Ethan with his eyes open, trying to smile even with all those tubes, she felt her heart putting itself back together after days of being shattered. "Hi, Mom," he whispered in a hoarse voice. "How long have you been here?" "Since always, my love. Mum hasn't left your side for a second." "And Grandma Barbara? And Aunt Jessica? Did they come to see me?" Sarah felt a stab in her chest. How to explain to a 7-year-old boy that his own family hadn't bothered to visit him, how to say they were too busy with parties and commitments to worry about him. They miss you very much, honey. Soon you'll be well and you'll be able to see everyone. Ethan nodded, but Sarah saw in his look that he knew something was wrong. Children always know when adults are lying, even if they can't understand exactly what about. That afternoon, Sarah decided to go down to the hospital cafeteria to eat something real. She had been eating only vending machine sandwiches and bad coffee for 3 days. She was in line when her phone rang. It was a number she didn't know. Hello? Sarah, this is Stephanie, the coordinator at Ethan's school. How is he? We heard. He was hospitalized. For the first time in 3 days, someone was asking about Ethan with genuine concern in their voice. Sarah almost cried right there. He's getting better, Stephanie. He had sepsis, underwent surgery, was in the ICU, but thank God the worst is over. My goodness, sepsis is serious. Sarah, do you need anything? All the teachers are concerned. The children in his class made some drawings for him. Can I bring them to the hospital? Sarah was speechless. Ethan's school, people who saw him only Monday through Friday were more concerned about him than his own family. Stephanie, you don't know how much this means to me. Yes, please bring them. He'll be very happy. Of course. And look, if you need anything, any help at all, just say the word. We're here for that. School family is family too. When Sarah hung up, she stood there in the hospital cafeteria, holding her phone, and thinking about those words. School family is family too. How was it possible that strangers showed more affection for her son than his own blood relatives? Back at the ICU, Sarah began to think about things she had never stopped to analyse before. Why had Barbara always treated Ethan differently? Why had Jessica never shown the same affection for Ethan that she showed for her own children? Why at family gatherings did Ethan always seem somewhat sidelined, as if he didn't fully belong to that group? She remembered when Ethan was born. Barbara had visited her at the maternity ward, but stayed only 15 minutes. She said she couldn't stay long because she was taking care of Tyler, who was 3 at the time and throwing a tantrum. Jessica also appeared briefly, more interested, in taking photos for Facebook than in meeting her nephew. Sarah had always justified this in her head. They're busy. Everyone has their own life. It's normal. But there, in the hallway of that hospital, she began to realise that none of it was normal. What would be normal would be the grandmother, cancelling any commitment to be with her sick grandson. Normal would be the aunt switching shifts at work to help her sister. Normal would be the entire family mobilising when a child is between life and death. On Wednesday, Stephanie appeared at the hospital with a bag full of drawings, cards and a teddy bear that Ethan's class had bought with their lunch money. Sarah cried, seeing each drawing. Get well, Ethan. You're strong. Miss Sarah is the best mum in the world. The children insisted on writing that, Stephanie explained, showing the last drawing. They said you're the bravest mother No, that you stayed at the hospital the whole time taking care of Ethan. When Ethan saw the drawings, his face lit up in a way Sarah hadn't seen in days. He kept leafing through each one, smiling, asking Sarah to hang them on the wall of the room. Mum, the whole school did this for me? He asked, incredulous. Yes, honey. Everyone misses you. And the family? Did Grandma Barbara send any drawings? Sarah pretended she was organising the drawings so she wouldn't have to look him in the eyes. Grandma is busy right now, Ethan, but she's rooting for you. A lie. Barbara hadn't even sent a message asking how Ethan was doing. The family group was still active, full of photos of everyone's daily lives, but it was as if Ethan had vanished from the map, as if he had never existed. That afternoon, Sarah made a decision she never imagined she would make. She called Barbara. Mum, Ethan is getting better. The doctor said he'll leave the ICU tomorrow or Friday. That's good, Sarah. I always said you exaggerate things. Mum, he was asking about you. Why haven't you come to visit him? Sarah, you know I don't like hospitals. That smell, those sick people. It gives me anxiety. Besides, Children recover quickly. There was no need for all this drama. Drama? Mum, your grandson almost died. But he didn't die, did he? He's there, alive and getting better. So the drama is over. Sarah took a deep breath. There was a question that had been hammering in her head for days. Mum, can I ask you something? Why do you treat Ethan differently from your other grandchildren? Silence on the other end of the line. I don't treat him differently, Sarah. You're just too sensitive. Mum, when was the last time you posted a photo of Ethan on Facebook? When was the last time you took him out for a trip, like you do with Tyler and Emma? Sarah, each grandchild is different. Tyler and Emma are closer because they live closer, that's all. Live closer? Mum, we live 15 minutes from your house. Jessica lives 20 minutes away. Look, Sarah, I'm not going to listen to your neuroses. If you have a problem with how I treat my grandchildren, that's your problem. I've always been a present grandmother. Present for whom, Mum? For everyone. You're the one inventing differences where there aren't any. Sarah hung up the phone with a certainty she had never had before. Her mother was lying. Not just lying, but lying with conviction, as if she really believed her own version of the facts. That night, alone in the cheap hotel room she had rented near the hospital, Sarah did something she had never done. She stalked her own mother's Facebook profile. She wanted proof of what she was feeling. Barbara had 2,847 photos on her profile. Sarah spent 2 hours counting. Of the total, 312 were photos with Tyler, 298 with Emma, 156 with Jessica, 89 with other relatives. And Ethan? Ethan appeared in exactly 23 photos. 23. In 7 years of life, Ethan appeared in less than 1% of his grandmother's photos. But it wasn't just the quantity, it was the type of photo. Tyler appeared alone, smiling in close-ups, with affectionate captions. My handsome grandson, Grandma's prince, my pride. Emma appeared in costumes, playing, being hugged by Barbara. Princess of the house, my doll, love of my life. Ethan always appeared in the background, in group photos, without emphasis, without special captions. In the few photos where he was in the foreground, the IT captions were generic. Family gathered, Sunday at home, Sunday lunch. Sarah took screenshots of some photos and made a comparison. The difference was glaring, absurd, painful. On Thursday, Ethan was transferred from the ICU to a regular room. He still needed to stay hospitalized for a few more days, but the worst had passed. Sarah was helping him eat some porridge when the nurse appeared with a bouquet of flowers. This arrived for Ethan, she said, smiling. Sarah thought that finally someone from the family had sent flowers. She anxiously picked up the card, expecting to see Barbara's or Jessica's name. Ethan, you're a warrior. The whole school is rooting for you. With love, Ms. Stephanie and all your friends from the 2nd grade. Flowers from the school. Again. While the family remained silent. That afternoon, Sarah was in the hospital hallway when she overheard a conversation that changed everything. 2 elderly women were talking in the waiting room, and one of them was telling about her granddaughter who had been hospitalized. You know how it is, right? We always have that grandchild who's the favourite and that one who we can't have the same affection for. The other woman agreed. Oh, I understand. I have 6 grandchildren, but I confess I have a preference for Larissa. She's just like me when I was a child. I love the others, of course, but it's not the same. Exactly. And there's no point in pretending it's equal, right? The heart feels differently. My granddaughter Emma is just like my daughter when she was little. As for Ethan, I don't know. I never really identified with him. Sarah froze. That voice. She knew that voice. She turned slowly and saw Barbara sitting in the waiting room, talking to a stranger about her grandchildren. Talking about Ethan. About her Ethan. And besides, Barbara continued, Ethan is the son of a single mother, you know how it is. The child gets a bit unbalanced, without a father figure. I always told Sarah she should have gotten married before having a child, but she never listened to me. Sarah felt her blood boil. Barbara was at the hospital. She was at the same hospital as Ethan, but hadn't gone up to see her grandson. She was in the waiting room, bad-mouthing him to a stranger. "Oh, I understand," the other woman responded. "Children without fathers really are more difficult." Exactly, and Sarah has always been problematic, always making drama, always exaggerating everything. Now she's hysterical because the boy had appendicitis, as if it were the end of the world. Sarah couldn't control herself anymore. She entered the waiting room and stood face to face with her mother. "Mom?" Barbara turned pale. "Sarah! What? What a coincidence." "I was here visiting Mrs. Marlene, who has her granddaughter hospitalized in pediatrics." "Visiting? How long have you been here?" I just arrived." The other woman stood up, clearly embarrassed. "Well, I'll be going. It was a pleasure talking. To you, Mrs. Barbara." When they were alone, Sarah faced her mother with a coldness she had never felt before. "How long have you been here, Mum?" "I already told you I just arrived." "Lie. I heard you talking about Ethan, saying he's unbalanced because he doesn't have a father, saying I exaggerate everything." Barbara tried to maintain her composure. "Sarah, you heard wrong." "I heard." "Wrong? Mum, you're in the same hospital as your grandson for how long? And you didn't go up to see him?" I was going to go up now." "I've been going up and down these hallways for 3 hours. You've been here for at least 3 hours, talking to a stranger, bad-mouthing your own grandson, and you haven't gone up even once to see how he is." Barbara was left without a response. For the first time in her life, Sarah saw her mother not knowing what to say. "You know what hurts the most, Mum? It's not you not liking Ethan. It's you lying about it. It's you pretending you treat everyone the same when we know it's not true." "Sarah, you're exaggerating as always." "Am I exaggerating? Fine. Then come up with me now. Let's visit your grandson. Let's pretend you care about him." Barbara hesitated. I can't right now. I have to go. I promised Jessica I'd pick up the kids from school." "Ah, of course. You have to pick up Tyler and Emma from school. The important grandchildren." "Sarah, don't talk like that." "Don't talk like what, Mum? With honesty. For the first time in my life." Sarah turned her back and started walking toward the elevator. Barbara followed her. "Sarah, stop this. You've always been dramatic since you were little, always inventing problems where there aren't any." "Dramatic?" Sarah turned in the middle of the hallway, not caring about the people who were watching. "Mum, my son almost died. Died. He stopped breathing for 5 minutes, and you didn't come to the hospital even once. Not once. But that's being dramatic. He didn't die. He's alive, isn't he?" "And if he had died, Mum? If I had lost my son, would you still be saying I'm being dramatic?" Barbara remained silent. "You know what I discovered these last few days, Mum. I discovered that I don't have a family. I have relatives. I have people who share my blood, who appear in Christmas photos, who call me daughter and sister, but real family. People who truly love you, people who drop everything to help you when you need it most. That I don't have." "Sarah, you're being unfair." "Unfair? Unfair?" Sarah was shouting now, and she didn't care. "Where were you when my son was dying? Where were you when I spent 3 nights without sleep, afraid of losing the only person I truly love in this world? We have our lives, Sarah. We can't stop everything because of what? Finish the sentence, Mum." "Because of what?" Barbara didn't finish. "Because of Ethan, right, Mom? Because of my son. Because he's not important enough for you to stop anything. Because he's not Tyler. Because he's not Emma. Because he's just Ethan, the grandson you never wanted to have." "I never said that." "You didn't have to say it. Your actions say everything." Sarah entered the elevator and pressed the button for the 4th floor. Barbara stood in the hallway without the courage to enter. "You know what else, Mum?" Sarah said before the doors closed. "You lost. You lost the chance to know an amazing boy. You lost the chance to have a grandson who would truly love you, if you let him. But don't worry, I won't allow you to hurt him anymore. Never again." The doors closed, and Sarah went up alone to the room where Ethan was waiting for her. When she got there, Ethan was playing with the drawings the schoolchildren had made, arranging them on the bedside table. "Mum, look how nice it looks. It's like a mural." Sarah looked at those drawings made with love by 7-year-old children who barely knew Ethan, but who cared enough to make a drawing, write a card, buy a teddy bear. "It does look beautiful, my love." "Mum, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why? Doesn't Grandma Barbara like me?" Sarah felt her heart tighten. Ethan knew. He had always known. "Why are you asking that, honey?" "Because she never comes to see me, never takes me for outings, never gives me special presents like she gives Tyler, and when I get sick, she doesn't come to the hospital." Sarah sat on the bed beside him and hugged him. "Ethan, there are people in this world who don't know how to love properly, who have confused hearts, who can't see how special some people are." "Did I do something wrong, Mum?" "No, my love. You never did anything wrong. You're perfect just the way you are." "Then why doesn't she like me?" Sarah took a deep breath. She decided to tell the truth. "Because she doesn't really know you, Ethan. Because she chose not to. Know you. And that's her loss, not yours." Ethan was thoughtful for a few minutes. "Mum, I have you. And I have my friends from school. And I have Miss Stephanie. That's already a family, right?" Sarah hugged her son tightly, trying not to cry. "Yes, my love. It's a much better family than many people have." That night, Sarah made a decision that would change their lives forever. She took her phone and left the family WhatsApp group. Without explanation, without goodbyes, she simply left. Then she blocked Barbara's and Jessica's numbers. She didn't want to hear excuses anymore. She didn't want empty explanations. She didn't want promises that would never be kept. On Friday, Ethan was discharged. Dr. Richard came to say goodbye personally. "Mrs. Sarah, your son is a warrior. And so are you. I've never seen such a dedicated mother. Thank you, Doctor, for everything. One thing I wanted to tell you. Family isn't just who shares the same blood. Family is who stands by your side in difficult times. And from what I've seen here, you have a beautiful family at Ethan's school." Stephanie was at the hospital door when they left, with a bouquet of yellow flowers and a huge smile. "Ethan! How good to see you on your feet." "Mrs. Stephanie, thank you for the flowers you all sent, and for the drawings, and for the teddy bear. We made them with a lot of love. You were very missed at school." Sarah looked at Stephanie and understood what Dr. Richard had said. This woman, who had known Ethan for less than 2 years, showed more genuine love for him than his own grandmother. On the way home, Ethan was quiet for a while. When they were almost there, he spoke. "Mum, we don't have to go to Grandma Barbara's house next Sunday, right?" "Why, honey?" "Because I don't want to anymore. I always feel sad there. I always feel different." Sarah parked the car and looked at her son through the rearview mirror. "Ethan, you will never again have to go anywhere that makes you feel bad. Never again. Promise?" "I promise." And it was a promise that Sarah intended to keep. Because in that week at the hospital, she hadn't just almost lost her son. She had lost her illusions about family, had lost hope of being loved by those who never loved her, had lost the fear of being alone. But she had gained something much greater, the courage to protect her son, the courage to say no, the courage to choose who deserved to be part of their lives. And most importantly, she had gained the certainty that true love has nothing to do with blood. It has to do with choice, with presence, with care. Ethan's school had chosen to love him, Stephanie had chosen to care. Dr. Richard and the hospital staff had chosen to take care. Barbara and Jessica had chosen indifference. And Sarah, finally, had chosen the truth. When they arrived home, Ethan ran to his room to show the teddy, Bear from the school to his toys. Sarah stayed in the living room, looking at the photos on the shelf. There were several family photos with Barbara, with Jessica, with the cousins. Photos where everyone smiled, where it seemed they were a happy, united family. But now Sarah could see what was behind those smiles. She could see Ethan always a bit to the side, always a little outside the main group. She could see herself forcing smiles, trying to fit in a place where she was never really welcome. One by one, she took the photos off the shelf and put them in a box. It wasn't hate. It was liberation. Because sometimes, to build a real family, you first need to get rid of the false family that prevents you from seeing who really loves you. And Sarah was ready for that construction. She and Ethan, and all those who chose truly to be part of their lives. 2 weeks after Ethan's discharge, Sarah was organising some old papers when she found a photo she hadn't seen in years. It was from a Christmas when she was about 10 years old. The whole family gathered at Barbara's house, smiling for the camera, but there was something strange in the photo that she had never noticed before. Barbara was holding a small child, a baby Sarah couldn't identify. She looked more carefully. It wasn't her, because in the photo she was to the side, already grown. It wasn't Jessica, who appeared as a teenager. So who was that baby Barbara was holding so lovingly? Sarah called her cousin Lucy, who always knew all the family gossip. "Lucy, can I ask you something kind of strange?" "Of course, cousin. How's Ethan?" "He's good, thank you. Look, I was going through old photos and found one from Christmas. It's 1991. There's a baby that Mum is holding, but I don't know who it is." Silence on the other end of the line. "Lucy, are you there?" "I am, Sarah. What photo is that?" "From Christmas at Mum's house. Mum is holding a baby and I have no idea who it could be." "Sarah, Look, there are some things about the family that we don't usually talk about." Sarah's heart raced. "What things? Lucy, tell me, please." "Sarah, promise you won't make a scene." "What scene? What are you talking about?" Lucy sighed deeply. "That baby is your brother." Sarah almost dropped the phone. "My what?" "Your brother, Sarah. You have a brother you never knew existed." "This is crazy, Lucy. What do you mean I have a brother? Where is he? Why did no one ever tell me?" "Because Aunt Barbara made everyone swear to keep it secret. His name is Michael. He was born 2 years before you, but Aunt Barbara, she gave him to Aunt Constance to raise." Sarah felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. She sat in the chair, trying to process what she was hearing. Gave how? Why? "Sarah, this was a long time ago. Things were different. Aunt Barbara was young, had financial problems. Your father had left home." "Lucy, stop stalling and tell me the truth." "The truth is that Aunt Barbara didn't want another child. Simple as that. When she found out she was pregnant again, she got desperate. Said she already had you and Jessica, that she couldn't handle another child." "But why did she keep me and not him?" Another long silence. "Lucy." "Sarah, do you really want to know?" "I do." "Because you were a girl," Aunt Barbara always said. "Girls are less trouble, and because Michael looked a lot like your father, and she hated your father." Sarah had to hold onto the table to keep from falling off the chair. "Where is he now?" "He lives in Denver. Aunt Constance raised him as her son. He knows the truth, Sarah. He always knew." "What does he call my mother?" "He doesn't call her anything. They don't speak. Aunt Barbara cut contact when he turned 18. "Why?" "Because he started asking questions, wanted to understand why he had been abandoned, wanted to meet you all, wanted to understand his family. Aunt Barbara said it was better for him to forget the past and move on with his life." Sarah was shaking. "Lucy, do you have his contact information?" "I do, But Sarah, are you sure you want to stir up this hornet's nest? I'm sure. Give it to me. Sarah, think carefully. This is going to cause a huge mess in the family. What family, Lucy? What family? The same one that didn't show up when my son almost died. The same one that has a hidden son for 40 years? Lucy gave her the number. Sarah wrote it down with a trembling hand. One thing, Sarah. Michael, he's a good person. Very good. Works as a teacher. Has a beautiful family. But he carries a lot of resentment. A lot. After she hung up, Sarah sat at the kitchen table, looking at that number on the paper. She had a brother she never knew existed, a brother who was abandoned by the same mother who now neglected Ethan. Ethan was at school. Sarah was alone at home, with the number of her lost brother in hand and 1,000 questions in her head. How could Barbara have abandoned a son? How did the entire family manage to keep this secret for 40 years? And most importantly, what else were they hiding? She dialed the number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Hello? Michael? Yes. Who's speaking? Sarah took a deep breath. I'm Sarah, your sister. Total silence on the other end of the line. A silence that lasted so long that Sarah thought he had hung up. Michael, are you there? I am, he replied with a choked voice. 42 years waiting for this call. And he started to cry. On the other end of the line, a 42-year-old man was crying like a child, and Sarah also started crying, without even really knowing why. I didn't even know you existed, Sarah managed to say through the tears. I found out today, by chance. I know. I always knew you didn't know about me. How did you find out about us? Aunt Constance told me when I turned 18, said I had 2 sisters, but that Barbara had forbidden any contact. Michael, I need to see you. I need to understand this whole story. Sarah, are you sure? Because once you know everything, you won't be able to pretend you don't know anymore, and maybe it's better that way. No, it's not better. I need to know, can you come here, or can I go there? I can come there this weekend, but Sarah, tell me something. How did you find out about me? Sarah told him about the photo, about the call to Lucy, about everything that had happened with Ethan at the hospital. She didn't visit you? Michael asked, incredulous. No, she was organising a birthday party for her other grandson. Man, she hasn't changed at all, not one bit. What do you mean? Sarah, she always had favourite grandchildren, always, even when we were children. Before she gave me to Aunt Constance, she already made distinctions between you two. Jessica was always the princess, you were always, how can I say, the complicated one. Complicated how? Oh, Sarah, there's so much you don't know, so much she hid from you. Then tell me everything. Not over the phone, this is a conversation to have face to face. I'll come on Saturday, okay? Okay, Michael? Yes. I'm sorry for you growing up without us, for being abandoned, for... Sarah, stop. You're not to blame for anything. You were a child. The blame is all hers. When Sarah hung up the phone, she sat there, trying to process everything. She had a brother, an older brother who had been abandoned by her mother, and the entire family knew and never told her anything. How many more secrets was Barbara hiding? On Friday night, Sarah told everything to Ethan. They were having dinner when she decided she wouldn't hide anything from her son anymore. Ethan, remember I told you that family isn't just who has the same blood? I remember. Well, I found out that we have more family than we imagined. You have an uncle you never met. Really? Where was he? In Denver. His name is Michael, and he was raised by your great-aunt Constance. Why didn't he live with Grandma Barbara? Sarah took a deep breath. How to explain abandonment to a 7-year-old child? because Grandma Barbara couldn't take care of him when he was a baby, so Great Aunt Constance took care of him as if he were her son. And now, he's coming here? Yes, tomorrow. Do you want to meet him? I do. Is he nice? I think so. Cousin Lucy said he's a teacher and has a very nice family. That's cool. I'll have a real uncle. Sarah smiled, seeing her son's enthusiasm. Ethan deserved to have family who truly cared about him. On Saturday morning, Sarah was as anxious as a teenager waiting for her first date. She had tidied the house 3 times, made a special lunch, rehearsed 1,000 times what she was going to say. When the doorbell rang, Ethan ran to open the door. "Uncle Michael!" he shouted, as if he had known his uncle his whole life. And when Sarah saw Michael for the first time, she was startled. He was the spitting image of their father. Same face, same eyes, same way of smiling. Now she understood why Barbara couldn't stand to look at him. "Hi, Sarah," he said, and she saw that he was emotional too. "Hi, Michael." They hugged right there at the door, a hug of 42 years of missing someone they didn't even know existed. "You look just like Dad," he said. "You have the same eyes." "You too. In fact, you are Dad. It's striking." Ethan was jumping around, the two of them. "Uncle Michael, did you bring pictures of your family? I want to meet my cousins." Michael smiled and took his phone out of his pocket. "I did, champion. Look, here's my wife, Patricia, and my children, Gavin and Amanda." Sarah looked at the photos and felt her heart tighten. Michael had a beautiful, smiling, united family, exactly what she had always wanted to have. "Do they know you're here?" she asked. "They do. Patricia was even a bit emotional. Said she always knew one day you would meet." During lunch, Michael told his story. How Aunt Constance had always been honest with him, how he grew up knowing he had sisters who didn't know of his existence, how he tried to contact Barbara when he turned 18. "She received me once," he recounted. "Just once. I was 19, just out of the army. I went to her house, knocked on the door, introduced myself. She turned white as a sheet." "What did she say?" "She said I shouldn't have gone there, that the past was the past, that I had my life and she had hers, and it was better to leave things as they were." Wow. "Then I asked about my sisters, said I wanted to meet you. She said you didn't even know I existed and it was better to keep it that way." "And you accepted that?" "At first, yes. I was young, insecure. I thought maybe she was right. But as I grew older, I came to understand that it wasn't normal, that a mother doesn't abandon a child like that." Ethan was listening to everything with wide eyes. "Uncle Michael, were you sad when you were a child?" "I was. Yes, Ethan. Especially when I saw other children with their parents. I kept wondering why my mother didn't want me." "Grandma Barbara doesn't like me much either," Ethan said, with that naturalness children have for speaking painful truths. Michael looked at Sarah, who confirmed with her eyes. "You know what I learned, Ethan? That when someone doesn't like us, the problem isn't with us, it's with them." "That's exactly what I tell him," Sarah said. "And you know what else?" Michael continued. "I was very lucky, because Aunt Constance loved me as if I were her own son. And you're lucky too, because your mother loves you more than anything in the world." Ethan smiled and hugged Sarah. "It's true. My mum is the best in the world." In the afternoon, when Ethan went to play in his room, Sarah and Michael sat on the porch to talk more privately. "Michael, can I ask you something? Do you know any other family secrets?" "I know several. Barbara has always been like that, always hiding things, always lying to keep up appearances." "What kind of things? Do you know she was married before she married our father?" "What?" "Yep. She was married from 18 to 21. She even had a son with her first husband." Sarah thought she was going to faint. "A son? Where is he?" "He died when he was a baby. Meningitis. It was after that she separated from her first husband. and met our father. Why did she never tell us this? Because Barbara constructs her own story as she wants. In her version, she was always a proper woman who only married once, who only had 2 daughters. Me and this first son don't exist in the official narrative. That's crazy. Sarah, there's more. Do you know why she has such an issue with children of single mothers? No. Because she herself was a single mother. Our father abandoned her when I was born. They only got back together when I was 2 years old, and that's when she got pregnant with you. So that's why she gave you to Aunt Constance? Exactly. She was alone, without money, with 2 small daughters, and pregnant with me. It was the most difficult time of her life. When our father came back, she thought it would be easier to start over without me in the picture. Sarah was shocked. The mother who always criticised her for being a single mother had gone through the same situation. Michael, how do you know all this? Aunt Constance told me. She was Barbara's confidant at the time. She knew all the secrets. Is Aunt Constance still alive? She died last year, but before she died, she gave me some letters. What letters? Michael brought a folder from his car and gave it to Sarah. Letters that Barbara wrote to her over the years. Letters where she tells everything. Absolutely everything. Sarah took the letters with trembling hands. There were dozens of letters written over 40 years. May I read them? You may, but prepare yourself, because it's not easy. Sarah opened the first letter, from 1981, when Michael was a baby. Constance, I can't stand this boy anymore. He cries all night, and every time I look at him I see that wretch Anthony. If you really want to keep him, you can take him. It will be better for everyone. The second letter, from 1983. Constance, Anthony came back and said he wants to marry me again, but he made it clear he doesn't want to raise someone else's child. It's better for Michael to stay there. At least this way I can restart my life. Sarah. Spent 2 hours reading the letters. In each one, Barbara spoke of Michael as if he were a problem, an obstacle, a mistake that needed to be forgotten. But what shocked Sarah most were the more recent letters, where Barbara spoke about Sarah and Ethan. Constance, Sarah is just like I was at her age. Stubborn, problematic, always causing trouble. And now she had this boy and doesn't even know who the father is exactly. Children without fathers always cause problems. I feel sorry for Ethan, who will grow up without a role model. And in a letter from 2019. Constance, I don't know what to do with Sarah. She wants me to treat Ethan the same as my other grandchildren, but it's not the same thing. Tyler and Emma are Jessica's children, who has always been responsible. Ethan is the son of a single mother. He'll grow up with problems. I prefer to invest my time and affection in the grandchildren who have a future. Sarah couldn't continue. Reading, she threw the letters on the table and started crying. Michael, she hates us. She doesn't hate us, Sarah. She's sick, mentally sick. She's always been this way, always will be. 40 years, Michael. For 40 years she hid you from us. And she continues lying, continues manipulating, continues hurting. That's why I have no contact with her. I cut off the relationship definitively when I read these letters. You know what makes me most furious? It's that she did this to me too. She always made me feel like I was a problem, that Ethan was a problem, and I believed it. I spent years thinking I wasn't a good enough daughter, that Ethan wasn't a good enough grandson. Sarah, do you want some advice? I do. Expose her. Tell the truth to everyone. Enough of lies, enough of secrets. People need to know who Barbara really is. What do you mean by expose? Make a post on social media. Tell about me. Tell about the letters. Tell about how she treated you at the hospital. Show everyone the true face of the grandmother of the year. Sarah was thoughtful. Did she have the courage to do that? To publicly expose family secrets? Michael, if I do that, it's going to cause a huge mess. So what? Let it cause a mess. You've already lost this family anyway, Sarah. They've already shown they don't care about you. What do you have to lose? What if they think I'm being vindictive? You're not being vindictive. You're being honest, for the first time in your life. That night, after Michael left, promising to return the next month with his family, Sarah stayed up late, thinking about the conversation. Ethan was sleeping, and she sat there in the living room, looking at Barbara's letters spread out on the table. 40 years of lies, 40 years of secrets, 40 years of manipulation. And the worst part, she had almost fallen into the same trap. She had almost allowed Ethan to grow up feeling rejected, thinking he was problematic, blaming himself for his grandmother's lack of love. Sarah picked up her phone and started writing. It was the middle of the night, but she couldn't sleep. She needed to get everything she was feeling off her chest. She started slowly, telling about the week at the hospital. About how she felt abandoned, about how no one from the family showed up to help. Then she told about Michael, about the letters, about the secrets she discovered. She wrote for 2 hours. A long, detailed, honest text. A text that would change everything. When she finished, she read it 3 times, thought about deleting it, thought about the consequences. Thought about the commotion this would cause. But she also thought about Ethan, about all the times he felt rejected, neglected, invisible. Thought about Michael, raised away from his family by the whim of a mother who didn't know how to love. Thought about how many other people Barbara had hurt throughout her life. And she posted it. My mother abandoned my brother when he was a baby, and I discovered this 2 days ago. For 42 years, she hid from the family that she had a 3rd child. For 42 years, my brother grew up thinking he wasn't wanted, that he was a problem. And do you know why she did this? Because he looked like my father, and she wanted to forget her own past. While my son was in the ICU between life and death, my mother was organising a birthday party for her favourite grandson. When I called desperately asking for support, she hung up on me because she had to sleep early to take her grandson to swimming lessons the next day. I discovered letters where she writes about me and my son as if we were a burden, a problem, second-class people. I discovered that for years she pretended to love me, pretended to love my son, when in fact she always saw us as obstacles. I can't stand pretending anymore that I have a family I never actually had. I can't stand protecting people who never protected me. And most importantly, I won't allow my son to grow up feeling rejected by people who don't deserve his love. This is my truth. Painful, embarrassing, but truthful. And if this bothers anyone in the family, the problem isn't mine. The problem was never mine. Sarah posted it and turned off her phone. She knew that the next day she would have to deal with the consequences. But at that moment, for the first time in 40 years, she felt free. Free to be honest. Free to love her son without apologising for it. Free to build a real family, based on true love, not on obligation or social conventions. From his room, she heard Ethan moving in his sleep. She went there and saw that he was smiling as he slept. Probably dreaming about the uncle he had just met, about the cousins he would soon meet, about a family that finally truly welcomed him. Sarah kissed her son's forehead and whispered, "Now yes, my love. Now we have a real family." And for the first time since Ethan was born, Sarah slept in peace, knowing she had done the right thing, that she had chosen the truth, that she had chosen to protect her son no matter what. Because real family is that, protecting those you love, even if it means confronting those you should love, but who never loved you back. Sarah woke up on Sunday with 347 notifications on her phone. The post she had made in the early morning had gone viral in a way she never imagined. More than 2,000 shares, 854 comments, and the number kept growing. She got up slowly, prepared coffee, and only then had the courage to open the comments. She expected attacks, expected criticism, expected people to say she was wrong to publicly expose the family, but that's not what she found. "Sarah, I admire you so much. I went through the same thing with my mother-in-law, who always treated my children differently from her other grandchildren. Thank you for having the courage to speak the truth. My grandmother also abandoned a child, and no one ever talked about it. Toxic family needs to be exposed. What a courageous woman. Your son is lucky to have a mother who protects him like this. I know Mrs. Barbara from church. I always thought she was a bit fake. Now I understand why. Sarah read the comments and realised she had touched a collective wound. Hundreds of people sharing similar stories, talking about toxic relatives, secrets kept for decades, children who grew up feeling rejected by their own relatives. Ethan woke up and came to have breakfast in the kitchen. Mum, why have you been on your phone since early morning? Remember I told you that sometimes people need to know the truth about the bad things that happen? I remember. Well, I told everyone about Grandma Barbara and Uncle Michael, and a lot of people are saying they went through the same thing. Will everyone know that Grandma doesn't like me? Sarah looked at her son and saw that he didn't seem sad. He seemed relieved. Everyone will know the truth, Ethan. And you know what else? Many people are saying you have a very brave mother. Ethan smiled. I already knew that. Sarah's phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello? Sarah, this is Patricia, Michael's wife. Hi, Patricia, how are you? Sarah, I saw your post. My God, what courage. Michael is here beside me crying with emotion. Really? Really? He said that in one post you did what he couldn't do in 40 years, show everyone who Barbara really is. Patricia, I'm terrified of the family's reaction. Sarah, what family are you afraid of? The same one that abandoned you at the hospital? The same one that hid my husband for 40 years? Forget those people, woman. You did the right thing. Yeah, I think so. And look, we want to come back there next weekend. Now with the kids, Gavin and Amanda are dying to meet their cousin Ethan. Really? They want to meet Ethan? They do. Gavin is 10, Amanda is 8. They were delighted when they found out they had a cousin. Can we come? Of course you can. Ethan will be over the moon. When Sarah hung up, Ethan was jumping with joy. I'm going to meet my cousins. I'm going to meet my cousins. At 10 in the morning, the phone rang again. This time it was Jessica. Sarah answered, prepared for a fight. Sarah, have you lost your mind? Good. Morning to you too, Jessica. You had the nerve to post that on Facebook, expose our mother that way. Expose? Jessica, I told the truth. Truth? Sarah, you're making up stories. What brother are you talking about? Michael, your brother. Our brother, the one Mum gave to Aunt Constance when he was a baby. That's a lie. Mum never had another child. Jessica, I have the letters. 40 years of letters where she tells everything to Aunt Constance. What letters? You're making this up. Do you want to come here and see the letters, Jessica? Do you want to read what our mother wrote about me and about Ethan? Silence on the other end of the line. Jessica? Sarah, even if this is true, you had no right to expose our family publicly. This is something to be resolved at home. At home? Jessica, when has our family ever resolved anything by talking? When has our mother ever been honest about anything? Sarah, you don't know what you've done. Mum is unwell. She's taking blood pressure medication. She can't leave the house. All the neighbours saw the post. And I should worry about that, why? Because she's our mother. Mother of what, Jessica? Was she a mother when she abandoned Michael? Was she a mother when she left me alone at the hospital with Ethan dying? Was she a mother when she spent 40 years lying to us? Sarah, you're being very unfair. 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 Jessica, did you read the post? Did you see what she wrote about me and about Ethan? I didn't read it all. I was too angry to read it. Then read it. Read it all. And then call me to talk about unfairness. Sarah hung up the phone, trembling with anger. How did Jessica have the nerve to defend her? How did she have the courage not to see the obvious? The phone rang again. It was Cousin Lucy. "Sarah, girl, you set the circus on fire." "Lucy, No need to explain yourself. You did the right thing. It's time all this hypocrisy came to light." "You're not mad at me?" "Mad? Sarah, I'm proud. You had the courage to do what all of us should have done a long time ago." "All of us?" "Sarah, you think you're the only one who suffered at Aunt Barbara's hands, that you're the only one who was mistreated by her?" "What do you mean?" "Sarah, Aunt Barbara spent her entire life judging everyone, bad-mouthing everyone behind their backs, creating family feuds. You weren't her only victim." "Tell me about it." "Remember Cousin Joanne, who moved to Chicago and never showed up at family gatherings again?" "I remember." "It was because of Aunt Barbara. Joanne had a child with a disability, and Aunt Barbara kept saying it was God's punishment because Joanne had gotten pregnant while single. Joanne endured it for years, until one day she exploded. And cut ties with everyone." "My God." "And remember Cousin Robbie, who everyone said was the black sheep?" "I remember." Aunt Barbara was the one spreading that. Robbie was always a good boy, but because he was a bit rebellious, she would tell everyone he was going to be trouble, that he would end up badly. You know where Robbie is today?" "Where?" "Graduated in medicine, living in Washington, D.C., married, with 2 children, but he doesn't speak to anyone in the family." Sarah was shocked. How many people had Barbara driven away from the family over the years? "Lucy, why did no one ever say anything?" "Because we were afraid, Sarah. Aunt Barbara was always the centre of the family, the matriarch. Going against her was like going against the whole family. And now? Now you've opened the way. After your post, my phone hasn't stopped ringing. Everyone wanting to talk, everyone telling their stories with Aunt Barbara." In the afternoon, Sarah was organising the house when the doorbell rang. It was a woman in her 50s whom she didn't know. "Sarah, I'm Joanne, your cousin." "Joanne!" Sarah hadn't seen her cousin in more than 10 years. Come in, come in." "Sarah, I came here because of your post. I need to tell you something." They sat in the living room, and Joanne began to speak. "When I read what you wrote, I cried. I cried because finally someone had the courage to say what everyone knew but no one talked about. Joanne, Lucy told me you distanced yourself from the family because of my mother. Distanced is putting it mildly. Sarah, Aunt Barbara destroyed my life for years. My son was born with Down syndrome, and she kept telling everyone it was because I had sinned, because I hadn't gotten married before getting pregnant." "That's horrible." She would say this in front of my son, Sarah, in front of a child with a disability, said he was God's punishment. Sarah felt like vomiting. One day I couldn't take it anymore. I exploded at her, yelled, said everything I had bottled up for years. You know what she did? "What?" "She told the entire family that I had disrespected her, that I was disrespectful, that I had lost my mind. Everyone took her side. No one defended me." "Is that why you moved to Chicago?" "That's why. I couldn't stand coming to family gatherings anymore and being looked at as the problematic cousin. I preferred to move away and start over, far from all this." "And your son, how is he?" Joanne smiled for the first time. "My son is great. He's 28, works at a company, has a girlfriend, is independent. Everything Aunt Barbara said he would never be able to be." "That's good, Joanne." "Sarah, you don't know the favour you did for everyone. People from the entire family have been calling me since yesterday, apologising, saying they always knew. Aunt Barbara was wrong." "Really?" "Really. Your post was like a collective liberation." That night, Ethan was playing in his room when Sarah heard a loud knock on the door. It wasn't the doorbell. It was someone knocking on the door with force, with anger. Sarah went to the window and saw Barbara standing at the door, alone with her face red with anger, knocking on the door as if she wanted to break it down. "Mum, Who is it? Ethan asked from his room. Stay in your room, Ethan. Don't come out. Sarah opened the door and stood face to face with Barbara. In her 43 years of life, she had never seen her mother like that. Dishevelled, with wrinkled clothes, red eyes from crying so much. Come in, Sarah said. Barbara entered like a hurricane. How dare you? Dare what, Mum? Expose me like that. Tell lies about me to everyone. Lies? Mum, do you have anything to deny? I do. This talk about a lost brother, these invented letters. Mum, Sarah interrupted. Michael is alive. He lives in Denver. Is married, has 2 children. He was here yesterday. Barbara turned pale. He was here. He was. He met the grandson you never allowed him to meet. Sarah, you don't understand. Things were different back then. I was young. I didn't have the means. Mum, stop lying. I read the letters, all of them. 40 years of letters where you explain exactly why you abandoned Michael. What letters? Sarah went to the bedroom and brought the folder that Michael had left. These letters, written in your own handwriting, 40 years bad-mouthing your own children. Barbara looked at the letters and collapsed on the sofa. Where did you get these? Aunt Constance kept everything before she died, and passed everything to Michael. She betrayed me. She betrayed you. Mum, you betrayed everyone. You betrayed Michael. You betrayed me. You betrayed Ethan. You spent 40 years lying to the entire family. Barbara started crying. Sarah, you don't know what it's like to be a mother. You don't know the difficult decisions we have to make. I do know what it's like to be a mother. I know what it's like to love a child unconditionally. I know what it's like to do anything to protect my child, and I know that a mother doesn't abandon her child. I didn't abandon anyone. I gave Michael to Constance because she could give him a better life. Lie. You gave Michael to Aunt Constance because he looked like my father and you couldn't stand to look at him. Barbara remained silent. And you know what else, Mum? You did the same thing to me and to Ethan. You didn't abandon us physically, but you abandoned us emotionally. You always treated us like second-class citizens. That's not true, isn't it? Then explain to me why you have 312 photos with Tyler on Facebook and 23 with me and Ethan combined. How did you... I counted, Mum, one by one. 43 years of life, and I appear in less than 1% of your photos. Barbara had no response. And explain to me why, when Ethan almost died, you chose to stay organising a birthday party instead of coming to the hospital. Sarah, Explain to me why you hung up on me when I called desperate saying Ethan. Had a cardiac arrest. I thought you were exaggerating, as always. Sarah stood up. Get out of my house. Sarah, I'm your mother. You're the woman who brought me into the world. A mother is someone who cares, who protects, who loves. You were never that. Sarah, please, we can talk. Talk about what? About 40 more years of lies? About you pretending to love me, while writing letters bad-mouthing me? Barbara got up, defeated. Sarah, if you do this, you'll regret it. Family is family. You're right, Mom. Family is family. That's why I choose my family now. I choose Michael, who spent 40 years waiting to be accepted. I choose Patricia and the children, who barely know me but have already shown more affection. For Ethan than you have in 7 years, I choose Stephanie and the school, who took care of my son when you all didn't even care. And me. You. You're not my family, Mom. You never were. Barbara left the house crying. Sarah stood at the door, watching her leave, and for the first time felt peace. Ethan appeared from the icy hallway. Mom, was that Grandma Barbara? It was, honey. She came to say goodbye. Is she going on a trip? Yes. Very far away. The following week, Sarah received a call she wasn't expecting. It was from a television program. Sarah, this is the production of the Family Stories program from ABC. We saw your testimony on social media and would like to invite you to participate in the program. The program? Yes, we want to do a segment about toxic families, about people who had the courage to break cycles of emotional abuse. Would you be willing to participate? Sarah thought about Ethan, about Michael, about all the people who had been hurt by Barbara over the years. Can I bring my brother with me? Of course. That would be even better. You can tell the complete story. A week later, Sarah and Michael were sitting in the ABC studio, telling their story to all of America. The program had a huge repercussion. Thousands of people called reporting similar situations, asking for help, sharing their own stories of toxic families. Sarah became a kind of involuntary spokesperson for people who suffered family emotional abuse. She received invitations to give lectures, to write a book, to participate in other programs. But what moved her most was the number of people who appeared telling stories about Barbara. Neighbours, acquaintances from church, old work colleagues, all confirming the pattern of behaviour that Sarah had denounced. 6 months later, Sarah was living a completely different life. She had moved to a bigger house, in a better neighbourhood. Ethan was in a new school, where he was loved and respected. Michael visited every weekend with his family, and the children got along as if they had been raised together. Sarah had started a blog about toxic family relationships that was very successful. She received messages every day from people thanking her for having the courage to speak the truth. Barbara didn't appear again. Jessica sent some angry messages at first, but then stopped. The family divided. One part stayed on Barbara's side, another part contacted Sarah to apologise and try to rebuild relationships. On a sunny Sunday, Sarah was on the porch of the new house watching Ethan play in the yard with Gavin and Amanda. Michael and Patricia were making a barbecue, and the house was full of laughter, conversations, life. Mum. Ethan appeared running. Can I call Gavin and Amanda cousins? Of course you can, honey. And Uncle Michael uncle? He is your uncle. Ethan. And Aunt Patricia aunt? Her too. Ethan smiled in that way that only happy children know how to smile. So now I have a big family. Yes, you do, my love. And Grandma Barbara, is she still my grandmother? Sarah looked at her son and thought about the answer. She could say yes, that even with everything that happened, Barbara was still his grandmother. She could try to maintain the lie, preserve the figure of the grandmother. But she chose the truth. Ethan, a grandmother is someone who cares, who loves, who worries about you. Barbara was never your grandmother. She was just a lady you had to call grandma at way. Family gatherings. So now I don't have a grandmother. Now you have something better. You have a family that chose you, that truly loves you, that is here because they want to be. That's worth more than any grandmother. Ethan nodded and ran back to play with his cousins. Sarah stayed there on the porch, watching that scene, and remembered the terrible day at the hospital. Bed 32, where Ethan had fought for his life while she discovered that she was alone in the world. But she wasn't alone. She never was. She just didn't know where to look for real family. Michael appeared beside her. What are you thinking about? The hospital, that day that changed everything. Do you regret making the post? Never. It was the best thing I ever did in my life. Even with all the commotion it caused? Michael, look around. Look at this house, these children playing, this family we built. Do you think I regret it? Michael smiled and hugged his sister. You know what I think? That Barbara did us a favour. How so? She taught us exactly the kind of family we don't want to be. She taught us to value true love. She taught us that family isn't an obligation, it's a choice. Sarah looked at that porch full of people she truly loved and who loved her back, and understood that Michael was right. Barbara had done them a favour. She had shown that it's possible to survive without false love, without conditional acceptance, without family that tolerates you instead of loving you. Ethan came running again. Mom, Uncle Michael said next week we're going to his house in Denver. We are, honey. And he said there's a swimming pool. Sarah laughed, seeing her son's enthusiasm. There is. You'll love it. Ethan ran off again, and Sarah was thinking about how life had changed. 10 months ago, she was a woman who lived begging for scraps of affection from a family that never valued her. Today, she was a woman surrounded by true love, by people who had chosen her and whom she had chosen. In bed 32 of the paediatric ICU at St. Luke's Hospital, not only did the risk of losing a son die, the myth of the obligatory family also died, of the family you have to love because they're relatives, of the family that mistreats you, but that you have to accept because it's family. And from the ashes of this disappointment, something much more powerful was born, the freedom to choose who deserves your love, who deserves to be part of your life, who deserves to be called family. Sarah learned that true family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shares your tears, your joys, your fears, your dreams. It's who stands by your side when the world falls apart, who helps you get up when you fall, who celebrates your victories as if they were their own. Ethan grew up in such a family that chose him, that loves him unconditionally, that is present in all the important moments of his life. A family that may not have the same blood, but that has the same heart. And Barbara? Barbara continued in her big house, surrounded by photos of her favourite grandchildren, posting on Facebook about the perfect family she built. But now everyone knew the truth. Everyone knew that behind those photos were lies, rejection, abandonment. Some people still believed her, still defended her, but the mask had fallen. And once the mask falls, it never goes back into place. Sarah didn't feel hatred toward Barbara. She felt pity. Pity for a woman who had the opportunity to have a beautiful family, to have children and grandchildren who loved her, but who chose control instead of love, appearance instead of truth, pride instead of humility. Patricia appeared on the porch. Sarah, the barbecue is ready. Let's eat. Let's go. Sarah entered the house hand in hand with her sister-in-law who had become a sister, followed by the children who had become cousins, accompanied by the brother who had waited 42 years to be part of a real family. There, at that table, eating barbecue, talking, laughing, they weren't relatives by chance. They were family by choice. And this, Sarah discovered, is the best family there is. If this story touched you in some way, like and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Because sometimes, to find our true family, we first need to have the courage to leave behind those who were never really family. And remember, there's more tomorrow.